Hello Dollyverse, it's Gypsy. I posted a poll that you guys voted on when I asked you if you wanted to see a sculpt study of all of the dolls that I have and the different sculpts I have. And 97% of people who voted said that they did want to see that, so I am making this video series for you guys. So I'm really excited to do this with you guys. I hope you enjoyed this series, and I plan to be posting more polls to find out what you guys want to see me do on the channel coming up. So look out for that. If you're not tuned into the community tab over on YouTube, go ahead and check that out so that you can make sure you're up on top of everything, and you want to have your notifications turned on because the people who were able to vote, most of them came over because they saw the notification alert when I made that post. Let's stay in communication with each other and let's get started. This series will most likely be in, I think, 7 parts or something close to that. In each video, I will have groupings of dolls showing what sculpts they are because I have multiples of these sculpts. I'm gonna start off with the dolls I have multiples of, and then we're going to move on to the dolls that I only have one head sculpt of. I'm also doing this for the male dolls in my collection, but to start off, because I have so many females, we're gonna start with the girls. Let's get into it. Here we go. So in this episode, we're gonna cover 5 different head sculpts. For those of you who are new here, I have my dolls kind of categorized by tiers of priority. So I have A, B, and C groups, and A is the highest priority. C is like, you know, the dolls that I like, but I don't need to look at them all the time. And everything besides those dolls, A, B, and C, are just a bunch of like random parts to me, basically. So I don't count those as part of my actual collection. So those are the sculpts that I'm going to talk about in this series, A, B, and C groups. And of those dolls, we have the new Teresa head sculpt. I have 2 of the new Teresa sculpts in my collection. The first one is Pilar, and the other one doesn't really have a name at the moment. She's just the green top made to move doll in the latest series of yoga dolls that have been released at the time that I'm filming this. And the reason why she doesn't have a name is because I don't know if I'm going to keep her head as part of a doll in my collection, because I really only got her as a body donor. And her skin tone is orangey tan kind of a color. So if you're looking for dolls who might match that skin tone, I would suggest this doll for a body donor. So these 2 have very similar skin tones next to each other. Here's a close-up look at their faces. But the other name for her actually is Bambi. That's a nickname that we have for this head sculpt as well. So you could call her both names, Teresa or Bambi, and people should know what you are talking about. The way that you can identify this sculpt fairly easily is by the features of her face, where her cheeks are. She has like some very slight dimples here and here. They're not super deep, but they're there on each side. So that's one of the ways you can recognize her. And they do tend to make this sculpt mostly in a Hispanic skin tone, which is like a tan coloring. Not all the time, but most of the time they do produce her mostly in that skin tone. So that is another way that you can identify whether you have a Bambi sculpt as well. And this is not one of my favorite sculpts, guys. I'm not a big fan of the sculpt. I'm very particular about the facial features and the face up of the dolls. So for those of you who are new to doll collecting, when you hear the word face up, we're basically just talking about the makeup of the doll, the way that her facial features have been painted onto the doll. Usually it could be talking about how the factory painted the doll, but it could also be a repainted doll that we're talking about when we say face up. So that's a term that you guys probably want to familiarize yourselves with. But for the most part, the recent renditions of this face, we don't see them doing a whole lot of glamorous makeup. We don't see a whole bunch of like flashy colors in the hair, not too often. There were some fashionistas that came out with this head sculpt that had some really kooky hair colors and styles, but for the most part, the makeup job on the face is very subtle, very simple looks. Before we move on, let me just iterate that the apartment that we're staying in, we got neighbors on top of us, on every side of us. So I'm hearing like water running from somebody's shower. If it's picking up in the audio, my bad. I can't do anything about that, guys, sorry. So next we're gonna look at LaVinia, the Madame LaVinia sculpt. And this one here with the short hair, she is the original LaVinia head sculpt, the very first doll that was produced by Mattel that used this sculpt. and she was part of the Harlem Theater collection that was launched with, I want to say, the Claudette character first, and then they came out with LaVinia. She is on her original body, which was the very first curvy articulated body type produced by Mattel, and she does not have made-to-move joints, but she's got the standard articulation for Barbies. This doll, man, her retail price was $85, and it's the only doll of this kind, like a collector level doll, that I've spent retail price on from Mattel, but I don't mind that I did because I really, really wanted this doll when she came out, and because these body types, there was no given that they were going to continue making them or that they were going to make them as accessible as we wanted them to. I just had to take the chance and get the doll. So that's how she ended up in my collection. I don't regret it, and she's very, very lovely. Like the way that they did her face up, to me, her face looks a lot like a believable, mature, aged woman, somewhere in her 40s. And that's one of the things that I love about the Barbie dolls in my collection that do show the age diversity. I really love that. For her facial features, you can see that her eyebrows, they're uneven because one of her eyebrows is supposed to look like it's like kind of arched. So they gave her like a facial expression too, so I really liked that about her as well. And she just looks really good. The makeup job is very good on her, and the way that she came, she was very glammed up, very like oldies looking, and very like Harlem Renaissance-ish. This is another LaVinia sculpt that was used on a holiday Barbie, I believe, and she has a different skin tone. She's got a much deeper skin tone than LaVinia, the original LaVinia. So this doll, I renamed her Starry, and then the Madame Lavinia doll, I had renamed her Enid. So they have different names than what they came with. All of my dolls have different names than what the dolls came with for the most part. I don't keep their original names because I like for them to be completely personalized. So the thing about this particular sculpt though is that they don't tend to use the sculpt on playline dolls. I haven't seen any playline dolls with this head sculpt that I know of that's like easily accessible. So I don't think that this is a sculpt you're gonna see often on the shelves unless you're getting holiday Barbie, some kind of collector level Barbie. Watch out for this head sculpt if you guys see it anywhere, if you're trying to add this to your collection. And I want to show you guys that, you know, even if you don't get the original sculpt as it came, if it's like a new sculpt, you can wait and see if they're going to reuse those sculpts for other dolls and kind of, you know, make it work with a different version. This is our vintage Silkstone head sculpts, and boy, do they look bougie. The Silkstone series of dolls, they are known for being very porcelain doll-ish. They're supposed to mimic the look of a porcelain doll, even the feel of a porcelain doll. They're made of vinyl, but the vinyl is quite heavy. So these dolls have a very beautiful, subtle look. They have like kind of like a very sultry kind of a look while also still looking kind of girly and like feminine at the same time. And their eyes, they usually put very drastic makeup on the eyes. They have very big foreheads, as you can see. Their profile is just whoa, like look at that forehead. They're like cartoon characters almost. It's massive. Their body types are very, very slender, very sleek. I love the weight of these dolls. They just have a lot of weight to them when you hold them. They feel sturdy. They feel like almost like they could just balance on their own, though they cannot. But they feel that way. They have that typical old supermodel look with the thin waist and the long legs. And they're just extremely dainty looking. Look at those hands. Yeah, so they come with some really awesome bodies. And the heads are very hard, like Integrity Toys dolls, but they're hard without feeling hollow, if that makes sense. These dolls are not hollow dolls. They're very well weighted. They give you a sense of like luxury and this deluxe kind of high-end feel. This one has got her original hairstyle still, and because it's heavily gelled, I haven't really done anything with it, but I can tell it's not super long. maybe shoulder length once I wash the gel out. But I haven't really felt the need to do that with her. I kind of like the fancy curls, so I just left it alone for now. And then this one, she had her hair in a slightly different style, but I took her hair down and just kind of brushed it out to see how it looks. It's a very reddish brown auburn type color. And so I have this black version and this white version, and I think that they're both very pretty. These are not typically the kinds of dolls that I collect on a regular, but I don't know, just something about them caught my eye, so I decided to add them to my collection. And they are the only 2 Silkstones that I have. I don't plan on adding more to my collection unless I see one that I really cannot resist. But I happened to see these dolls at Tuesday morning, and they were at a very decent price. So that's the only reason why I spent the money on them, because normally for these dolls I would not have spent their retail asking prices for them. I don't think that they're worth it, but for what I paid for them, they were definitely a steal. So I would have been stupid of me to pass up on them. That's how they ended up in my collection. The brown doll, I named her Golda. She's originally the chic city suit doll. And then the other one, I named her Porcelain because she reminds me of a porcelain doll. So I named her Porcelain. She's the blue chiffon ball gown version of the Silkstone dolls. And though the Silkstone dolls are supposed to look like the old school Barbie dolls back in the day when like Barbie first came out, they had this kind of a look, but these guys are like reproduction versions of those dolls. They're the modern version of those dolls. So they just look like them and feel like them, but they're not the dolls from the past. So they do have articulation. These guys have joints. They have joints everywhere pretty much. They don't have made to move joints, but they have standard joints that we saw before made to move came on the scene. Okay, so our next group is the face sculpt called June. This is a fairly new sculpt that we saw with the last few waves of Fashionistas dolls. And I happen to have 3 in my personal collection. So the first one I have here is Alana, who I was just in love with because she reminded me of my actual real girlfriend, Alana, who I named her after. And this one here is Taina. She is originally the hiker made to move doll that was so sought after because of her skin tone and people wanting to use her as a body donor. She came with a giant fro of hair underneath her helmet, her little hiking helmet that she had on. But I shouldn't even say she's a hiker. I think she was more of a rock climber, but we just called her hiker because that was what everybody was calling her. So yeah, but she had like a helmet, and this is the one that I started to braid up her hair, but I never finished it. I'm still not sure. She's another one that's like a question mark for me because I don't know if I really consider this doll a doll that's gonna officially stay in my collection. She's definitely on tier C in my collection for her head because of the face up. I'm not a big fan of her face up. That's what ultimately makes me decide what tier I'm going to place the doll in, what a priority it is for me to look at the face. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this face up. I think she's just very ordinary looking, but like not ordinary like in a relatable way, just in like a really boring way. Like she just looks like she's staring off into space someplace. No personality to me. She's definitely in tier C, and this is one of the dolls where if I find a better face sculpt that suits this body type, her head is gonna pop off and this body's gonna go to another doll's head immediately. Like I won't even think twice about it. So she's almost like a body donor that's just keeping a spot warm for a future doll that could use this body, if that makes sense. And then this one here, this one is our rainbow dress fashionista doll, and she was actually given to me by one of our subscribers. And a lot of my dolls were gifts from subscribers and viewers, so if I can remember to, I will try to put their social media up on the screen for you guys so you can go and follow them or check out their channels as well. And this one is my replacement Tyree Indigo, which is one of my old characters that I had, and originally it was a Fancy Flowers doll, but I don't know what happened to my doll because we moved, and some of my dolls I think got lost in the mix. So as I was doing this, organizing these dolls, I realized I actually have a good handful of dolls that are missing from my collection due to our move. It was very sudden, you guys. So I needed a replacement for that character, so I decided to use her for that character that I really liked. She's supposed to be an Ivorian French girl, like my friend Roxy. So she is that character for me now. So she took on her name, Tyree. She has the deepest skin tone available to Barbie dolls at this time. Now, as you can see, she has made to move articulation, but that's only because I had to customize this body in order for her to have articulation. And you can see here on her hands that the color is fading from her limbs, and also under her neck here, you can see that the joint, when it moves, it scrapes against the paint. So it's moving the color off of her skin. So this is not the best way to customize skin tone for your dolls. And another issue that I had with this is that I used a white body in order to try this experiment on, and it worked. However, when the color started to fade off of these limbs, you can see the whiteness underneath. So it just looks like she's got like a, like a skin condition or something, where parts of her skin is patchy in different colors. And there are people that actually have those kinds of conditions in real life, so it's not totally unbelievable. But if you want your doll to have a uniform coloring all the way through, I would not suggest doing what I did. Try it out on a darker skin tone like this one, and then put the paint over that, so that it will be a lot harder to tell when the paint starts to chip off of the limbs, because the vinyl that they use for the limbs, it's not the same as the vinyl that they use for the body. Like the hands and the feet, they're a little bit softer, so the quality of the vinyl is different, and then the paint doesn't stick to it the same way. But anyways, I had to just make it work. So I tried out that customizing technique. It worked, and I was able to give her a made to move body because I was so tired of looking at her on her stiff body. And the color matches perfect, so I'm not complaining about that. But I think I'm going to try something like this again. I might even use her body to do this and just give her this body and remove Taina from my collection altogether. I don't know yet, but I'm thinking about it. So these are my June head sculpts here. And like I said, this is one of the newer sculpts, and you almost can't even tell that she is the same sculpt as them, because they don't even look the same. Like, they don't look alike. So face ups are so important on how you choose your doll, because even if it's the same sculpt, it may not look the same depending on how they paint the features onto the face. Yeah, and it looks like they all have open mouths because you can see the teeth. But this one, I think I repainted her mouth. And even though I did not extract any teeth, it doesn't really look like her lips don't close all the way. So I don't know if that's actually a row of teeth in there or if they just painted the teeth on. I can't really tell, but it's something to think about if you're concerned about teeth showing in your doll sculpt. I don't mind it so much because it's not very noticeable. It's not very prominent, and the teeth are only slightly showing. Like, the lips are very slightly apart. So it's not a big deal for me, but I just thought I would point that out for those of you who might be concerned about something like that. This one is my favorite of the June sculpts that I have. She's my favorite only because she looks so much like my friend, and it just makes me think about her every time I look at her. And I love looking at my dolls that remind me of my friends, because I cannot take my friends with me everywhere I go. So my way of doing that kind of is to find dolls that remind me of them, even if it's not an exact look-alike, just whatever about the doll reminds me of them. We're gonna end today with this last sculpt. We're gonna call this sculpt Daya. I don't know if it's supposed to be Daya or Daya, but it's spelled the way it's spelled. And I was so curious about this sculpt because this one here is untouched. This is the Barbie Extras version of this sculpt, and she's really cute. I love the way she looks. I love her face sculpt. Her hair is very cool looking. I've taken them out of the braids that they came in, and they're all just multicolored pastel colors, like totally mermaid hair. But the quality of whatever this is in her head is ghastly. It's horrendous. So I can't really style her hair the way that I want to. So it's a crying shame that that is the case, because if they had used proper saran like they normally do, then she would have so much more potential, and I'm not patient enough to go through the process of rerouting her. So I don't know, I'm just kind of stuck with her the way she is for now. This is the original sculpt here with the face the way it's supposed to be. These other two I have in the background have been altered. So this one, I named her Dolly. Oh my god, so original. And I only named her Dolly because I thought she just seems like such a typical doll. Like the hair color, the bad quality synthetic hair, and then the loud makeup and the loud clothes that she had on when I got her. And I actually placed her onto a made to move body as well, so she's got full articulation like a lot of my dolls do. But these two are my super favorites in my collection as far as these sculpts are concerned. And I said to myself, let me see how they look with their lips closed, because I'm wondering, why do we call this sculpt Daya? Is it supposed to look like an open mouth version of the Zendaya doll that looked just like the actress Zendaya? And I'm like, they look so similar. Like, is this supposed to be that sculpt, just like a playline version of it with teeth showing? So to experiment, I went ahead and closed their mouths yesterday, actually, just before I started filming this. And they look so cute with their lips closed. I totally prefer them with the lips closed. And I did have to do some slight repainting to the lips. Although, if you do it just right, you don't actually have to repaint your doll's lips when you do the teeth extraction method that I use. Each of them look like their lips are slightly different shapes, and that's fine by me, but I really like them with the lips closed. And I was impressed to see, especially on this one because she's a lighter skin tone, they look so much like the Zendaya sculpt on that doll. Very similar, like almost like a lazy version of that doll. So I did want that doll, but of course that doll was like, come on, who's gonna get it, right? It's totally impossible for us to get. So I was okay with having kind of like a budget version of that through this head sculpt. It's the closest thing I've seen so far that reminds me of that head sculpt. And if you're a good repaint artist, you may actually be able to pull it off, close up the lips of your doll, find the one in the right skin tone, and then make like a duplicate, like a copy of the Zendaya doll. And you might be able to totally pull it off, especially if you know how to do the twist with the yarn and the hair and all that stuff. You might be able to do a really good custom version of that doll with this sculpt. So that is my suggestion to you guys who are really creative and like doing stuff like that. The rainbow hair version, I named this one Romy, and her hair is so cool. She's got mostly black hair, and then underneath the black is all the rainbow colors. She's freaking gorgeous, and her hair is super long. It goes all the way down to like her ankles or something when it's down. So I love that. A lot of fun to play with her hair. And this one, she's my plainest Daya sculpt, and I gave her some pierced ears, and I didn't do much of anything else to her except that I put her onto a made to move body. She's using the BMR 1959 doll with the green fingernails, which means, who's the one with the green fingernails, you guys? That's the Asian Kira head sculpt one. And another doll you may be able to use for a body donor is gonna be the yoga series, the most recent one that has been out, with the curvy body type. She's got the red shirt on, but she's like a super duper budget doll from Walmart is where I found her. She was like $7 or something, and she came with like a gymnast kind of a look. She had like a gymnast leotard and like, I don't know, something like that. But I don't know if those dolls have actual like names or whatever, but that's what she was. So that version, I call her Tambourine Jackson as our homage and our little inside joke about our twins, Reagan and Sierra, whose ghetto cousin from the hood. Her name is Tambourine, and one of our viewers had made a suggestion about calling one of our dolls Tambourine Jackson. So I decided I'm gonna make her Tambourine Jackson. Those are all the dolls in this episode that we're gonna get into. Yeah, so those are our 5 head sculpts. So we started off with Bambi, new Teresa, then we have LaVinia, and then we have Daya, June, and the Silkstone dolls, the vintage Silkstone faces. What do you guys think? All right, tell me in the comments if you have any or all of these sculpts in your collection, and tell me which of these are your favorites and why. And we will move on to the next video with our next group of dolls, so stay tuned. Have a dolly day.